Thank you, students. You may please sit quietly. Good morning, students, staff, special guests, and veterans to the 2024 Anzac Day services. This ceremony will be presided over by our Varsity College school captains from both primary and secondary campus. My name is JJ Athanasius, and this is Faith Cash. We would like to welcome our current serving and return service men and women to this special occasion.
The 25th of April is a very important day on which Australians and New Zealanders honour the service and sacrifice of our Defence Force personnel. These courageous men and women have served in armed conflicts, vital ancillary roles and peacekeeping missions since the day in 1915 on which our Anzacs landed on Gallipoli. Today, we join together to commemorate their service to our country.
We would like to invite Uncle John from Bond University to present the Welcome to Country.
Real pleasure to be here this morning, and thanks to Varsity College for inviting me over to do the welcome. I say good day to all the dignitaries, including the return service people, staff and students. It's important that we commemorate that special sacrifice that many people have given, men and women, over the times since the Boer War right through to recent conflicts, but also paying respect to the Anzacs who landed on Gallipoli over 100 years ago, losing 820 Australians on that first day, losing 8,141 soldiers in the conflict until they withdrew. So it was the big major conflict that we had as Australians, and many of my people have served in different wars, including the First World War. Bagel Yungai Jimbalungs, g'day friends, my name's John Graham, proud Kumbamerri man, saltwater man of the Gold Coast region. Our people are part of the Wadi Yugambeh language group, whose land stretch from the Logan River in the north, the Tweed River in the south, to the other side of the Great Dividing Range out past Bow Desert, up to a place called Teviot Brook in the north, bordered by the beautiful Pacific Ocean. Kumbamerri land stretch from the Goomera, the Coomera River in the north, down to the Tweed and to the foothills of the mountains. As it all welcomes, I'd like to acknowledge and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, because it was the old people that fought the good fight in dark and desperate times, in order for people of our generation to work with other Australians towards a reconciled nation, in order for us to leave a legacy for our young people. For they are the bearers of the flame, the keepers of the knowledge, and that keep our culture strong into the future. I pay my respects to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people across this nation, and I pay my respects to the spirit of this land and her people, which includes all of us here this morning. My authority to speak comes from Waru, my epical ancestor, who grew up on the banks of the Logan Narang River, Naringwal, place of the shovel-nosed ray. In a later life, she came and lived with her daughter Jenny and husband Andrew, who were the river masters, the river pilots of the mighty Narang River, long before all the canal estates were developed, long before all the skyscrapers were built. Lived on a small island called Gardner Island, just off Brighton Parade, down from the Southwood Bridge. Our people were sustained by the abundance of seafood from both the river and the ocean, and also the land. Our footprint remains strong in this built environment because our sovereignty was never ceded. We are and always will be the traditional custodians of this place. I say custodians, others say owners, and that's their prerogative. But I believe that Mother Earth has sustained us for eons of time, and we as Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people have always given back. It's a message to give to small groups, it's a message to give to large groups. It's a message about sustainability. Economic sustainability, more about environmental sustainability. Mother Earth and nature right across the world is struggling, and we are stewards of country, of this country. When I talk about stewards, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people will always be the stewards of country, and we look after country. It's important because country is not just the land that we walk on, country is the air, the ancestors, the spirits, oceans, rivers, creeks, lakes, plains, hills, mountains, deserts, forests, fauna and flora, and us, humans. We've got to make sure that this place, and we've all got a responsibility to it, to look after country for the future generations coming, even if you young people, the future generations coming after you as well. We need to make sure that Mother Earth is looked after. I've had the pleasure of welcoming you here today. I ask you several things. Respect this place, respect the fauna and flora, respect each other, and most importantly, respect yourselves. Really enjoy the proceedings and have a nice day. Until we meet again, on your boo, on your boo. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Hayden Lamb, and with me is Holly Shelton. We would now like to thank the organizations and the people who have joined us today for Varsity College's 2024 Anzac Day commemoration. First and foremost, we thank our veterans, serving officers, ancillary personnel, and the organizations that support them and their families.
We would like to welcome from the Vietnam Veterans Federation, Private Peter Handy, President, 8th Field Ambulance in Nui Dat, South Vietnam. Private Andy Bryson, 4 Signals Regiment in Nogra. Private Ken Bridges, 1st Australian Civil Affairs and 8th Field Ambulance Nui Dat, South Vietnam. Corporal Kevin Roberts, Headquarters, 1st Brigade, Holsworthy. Warrant Officer Adrian Cook, Armoured Corps, 2 tours Vietnam, RAEME, and grew up in a Japanese internment camp, Indonesia, in World War II. And Sergeant Peter Cameron, OAM, Base Support, 1 Operations Support Unit, Nui Dat, South Vietnam. From the Vietnam Veterans Association, Corporal Roger Blackford, 9 Royal Regiment, Assault Pioneer, Section Commander, Vietnam. From Madraba Light Horse Museum, Lance Corporal Wayne Clifford, 76 Signal Squadron, Southeast Asia, and Mrs. Noy Clifford.
We would also like to welcome Warrant Officer 2, Matthew Julian, Land Warfare Center, Canungra. Warrant Officer Graham Ma, 23 Squadron, Royal Australian Air Force. Private Michelle Boyce, 15 Transport Squadron, Army. Able Seaman Joanne Smith, HMAS Harmon. Chief Petty Officer Lewis Smith, HMAS Vampire. Varsity staff members Mr. Aaron Martin, Corporal Michelle Perrone, and Private Alicia Iriani.
We would also like to include our special guests, Mr. Ray Stevens, MP, member for Mermaid Beach, Councillor Dan Doran, Division 11, on behalf of Michael Hart, MP, Mr. Herman Vorster, and Uncle John from Bond University. We also thank representatives of the Varsity College governance community, President PNC, Ms. Andrea Williams, and executive team, Principals Mrs. Gravendyke, Mrs. Woolno, and Executive Principal Mr. Hughes. We extend our appreciation to members of the wider Varsity College community.
Today, as we gather to commemorate Anzac Day, we pay tribute to the remarkable spirit of our nation. Anzac Day holds a special place in the hearts of all Australians, as it honors the courage, sacrifice, and resilience of those who have served in our armed forces. April 25th marks the anniversary of the first major military action fought by the Australian and New Zealand armed forces during the First World War. From the beaches of Gallipoli to the deserts of North Africa, the Kokoda Track, Borneo, Malaya, Korea, Vietnam, East Timor, Iraq, and Afghanistan. Australians have answered the call to defend freedom, democracy, and justice all around the world. Their bravery and dedication in the face of adversity has left an indelible mark on our nation's history.
We recognize our veterans who have served our country and acknowledge the efforts of current servicemen and women from diverse backgrounds across Australia. We spare a moment on this day to remember those brave men and women who have made the ultimate sacrifice. We also recognize the invaluable role of women in our armed forces. From nursing the wounded on the front lines to serving in combat roles, women have shown immense strength and commitment in the defense of our nation. Moreover, we must not forget the significant contribution of First Nations soldiers, whose service and sacrifice often went unrecognized. Their courage and resilience in the face of discrimination and adversity highlights the strength of our Indigenous peoples and their enduring commitment to the nation.
As we reflect on the sacrifices made by past generations, let us also reaffirm our commitment to peace on the world stage. Anzac Day reminds us of the horrors of war and the importance of working towards a future where conflict is resolved through dialogue, diplomacy, rather than violence. On this day, we honor the Anzac spirit, a spirit of mateship, sacrifice, and resilience that continues to inspire us all. Let us remember those who have served and continue to serve, and strive to build a better world where peace can prevail. On this day, we will remember them. The Varsity College Chamber Strings, conducted by Miss Nikki Griffith, will now perform A Prayer for Peace by John Williams.
We are also very privileged to have Warrant Officer 2, Matthew Julian, joining us today. Warrant Officer 2 is a current serving member of the Australian Army and is posted to the Land Warfare Centre, Canungra. Enlisting into the Army in 1997, at 17 years of age, he has served on operations in East Timor, Solomon Islands, Iraq, and Egypt, and fulfilled mentor roles with the US military and Papua New Guinea Defense Force. We welcome Warrant Officer 2, Matthew Julian, to speak here today in commemoration of Anzac Day.
Varsity College teachers, staff, students, parents, family and friends, and the distinguished guest. It is an honour to be asked to speak here again today at the school on the reflection and the eve of our commemorative Anzac Day, for which most Australians recognise as one of the most important days of the year. Anzac, a set of initials etched into our history that represented Australian and New Zealand Army Corps. And in 1915, those men, together with British, Indian and French soldiers, were sent to fight in part of Turkey known as the Gallipoli Peninsula. Well, what happened? Early in that morning, when it was still dark, 36 large rowboats loaded with Australian and New Zealand soldiers and towed by naval boats left the protection of the larger British ships and set off for the beaches of Gallipoli. They were about to invade Turkey. An hour and a half later, the first boats were crushed against the shores and the rock and sand of the place now called Anzac Cove. The soldiers scrambled ashore and started to climb up the steep slopes as enemy machine gun fire came down upon them. Many were killed or wounded in the very first hours. In the dark, many of the boats had drifted off course and had landed quite a long way from where they should have been. They had, in fact, landed where the Turkish forces were the strongest and where the machine gun fire was at its strongest. By 2 o'clock in that afternoon, some 12,000 men lay dead on the shores. Later that day, some very brave Australians reached the heights overlooking the beaches. However, they were soon forced to turn back, never to return. Within a month, over half of those who had landed at Gallipoli were either dead or wounded. For 7 long months, the Anzacs hung on to their positions on the cliffs and slopes of the Anzac Cove. The Australians and New Zealanders could not go forward, but neither could the stubborn Turkish forces force them back into the sea. In those months, a spirit developed among the soldiers. A spirit relied on each soldier and helping out his mates. By the end of that year, 1915, some 32,000 Australian and New Zealanders had been killed at Gallipoli. The battle had been a military failure. The Anzacs had lost and they were forced to withdraw and leave Turkey. The battle was over, but in those months, so many Anzacs had died under terrible conditions of heat, cold, sickness and suffering, or lack of sleep and food and shelter. In these months, the Anzac legend was born. The Anzac is now known not only amongst our military personnel and Australian citizens across the world. The actions and conduct of those Australians and New Zealanders who endured a dangerous and ultimately perilous task in the face of adversity and hardship has left a page in our history and an unremarkable legacy. Their actions have forged that Anzac spirit. Our military history, albeit short in terms, is not only written on the pages of warlike operations, but also that of peacekeeping operations and missions across the globe. Australian men and women have served in World War I, II, Korea, Malaysia, Borneo, Vietnam, Somalia, Rwanda, South Sudan, East Timor, Solomon Islands, Egypt, Iraq and Afghanistan. Their humanitarian operations also served across the world in support of an allied force. This Anzac spirit continues to grow and empower and resonate today with many serving personnel of the Australian Defence Force, that be the Army, the Navy and the Air Force. In meeting these everyday challenges, Australian Defence Force men and women embrace this Anzac spirit. It is part of us, part of our uniform and part of everyone that has served before us. But what does this Anzac spirit mean and what should it mean to you? I believe it is not just a word or a term. It represents a number of qualities and virtues that all of us, not just the serving personnel, but all Australians should respect in their everyday lives. The Anzac spirit represents a sense of purpose and direction that is not about oneself but about our people, who we are and our belief in the greater good. As young Australians, you can apply this in your everyday life, whether that be at school, at home or amongst your friends. The physical and moral courage to stand up and do better regardless of the difficulties that are faced before you. This Anzac spirit is today represented by distinct values and behaviours of our LDF's personnel: service, courage, respect, integrity and excellence. In my 27 years I've served on separate operational deployments, and when I personally reflect on this, I've witnessed atrocities that conflict has left on a country and its people, but I've witnessed through small acts of kindness. The expression of turmoil will replace with the relief of happiness with the presence of Australian soldiers. It is in these moments I reflect upon, and I'm proud to serve and continue to serve Australia and those in need. I hope that you as young Australians, and that some of what I've said today resonates upon you, that a small understanding of our significant military history makes you proud to be Australian. As we gather before the rise of the sun tomorrow, you will see current and ex-serving personnel standing together within our communities to mark the commemoration of the Anzac and acknowledge those that have served and continue to serve. I welcome and encourage you to pay your respects, because a great burden has been placed on these men and women, in which some have paid the ultimate sacrifice. Their memories to be carried on by sons, daughters, grandchildren, and you as young Australians, lest we forget.
Today, as we gather to commemorate Anzac Day, let us pause and reflect on the valour and sacrifice of those who have served our nation. Let us remember the courage of the Anzacs, who faced unimaginable challenges with unwavering determination. May we honour their memory by upholding the values of freedom, democracy and unity for which they fought. As we pay tribute to their legacy, let us also renew our commitment to peace and justice in the world.
Students, please listen carefully to instructions for the next 5 minutes, the most important part of our ceremony. In preparation, we would ask the piper, banner party, and bugler to please step forward and take their places. First, guests will be invited to lay wreaths. Once the guests have assembled, the lament will be played on the bagpipes. The lament is a song of mourning and remembrance, and so we bow our heads in respect at this time and throughout the commemoration. Once all wreaths have been laid and the guests are in place, the bugler, Hilton Jin, will sound the last post. This call is traditionally used to signal the day's end to troops and to bid farewell to the dead.
At the end of the last post, there will be a 1-minute silence honouring those who have given their lives so that we may live ours. This will be broken by the rouse. This bugle call is named after the French word meaning to wake up. It symbolises the rebirth of the dead soldier into eternal life. After this, the Ode of Remembrance will be recited. Please remember to repeat the line, "We will remember them, lest we forget," at the end of the ode. The Wreath party will be coordinated on behalf of the college by Corporal Michelle Perrone. Corporal Perrone, along with Mr. Martin and Private Iriani, will lay the final wreath on behalf of Varsity College. Staff, students and guests, please now stand silently. As the bagpiper begins to lament, guests, please lay your wreaths. Ode of Remembrance. They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them, lest we forget. Banner party, please take your seats. Please now all sit quietly. The Varsity College Rolling Tones Choir, directed by Miss Harriet Nicholson, and Chamber Strings, directed by Miss Nikki Griffith, will perform Abide With Me by William Henry Monk.
We now call upon the junior school captains of Prep to Year 6, Killian Quigley, Camille Doe, Toby Peters, and Madeline Lee to deliver the resolution on behalf of the students and staff at Varsity College.
This school reaffirms its gratitude for the service and sacrifice of all Australian and New Zealander sailors, soldiers, Air Force personnel, and medical and civilian staff. On the first Anzac Day and in all the other conflicts since, these men and women have given the enduring gift of liberty of thought and action to us all. They have, on our behalf, also supported millions of people around the world fighting for their freedom or suffering in conflicts or catastrophes that are not of their own making. These men and women come from all walks of life, all races or religions, and are united in a common cause, a cause for which we have the utmost respect.
This school voices its heartfelt sympathy for the relatives of those who have given their lives, their health, and their youth to uphold the fundamental values of integrity, courage, and compassion for others, values shared by the Varsity College community. This school gives its assurance that those who have fallen, those who have survived the perils of war, and those who are currently in conflict zones will be remembered and honoured, not just on this day, but in the way we live our daily lives, upholding the values for which they have made so many sacrifices. We dedicate ourselves to the cause of justice, understanding, and peace, and strive for the wisdom and strength to build a better tomorrow.
I will soon ask you to stand quietly and respectfully for the national anthems of New Zealand and Australia, which will be performed by our chamber strings and members of our choir, conducted by Miss Griffith. Banner party, please take your positions.
Banner party, into line, left, turn. Banner party, present, arms.
Please now stand quietly for the national anthems.
Step back from the microphone. Perfect. And then I'll tap you when we're going on.
Nations at thy feet.
Students, please be seated. As our Anzac Day ceremony draws to a close, let us carry with us the solemnity and significance of this day. Today, we have stood together to honor the bravery, sacrifice, and spirit of those who have served our country. We would like to ask the honor guard to please take their places.
In the quiet moments of reflection, we have remembered the Anzacs who faced the horrors of war with courage and resilience. Their sacrifices remind us of the true cost of freedom and the importance of never forgetting the lessons of the past. Let us strive to build a future worthy of the sacrifices made by those who have served and continue to serve.
May we always remember the fallen, honor the living, and support those who bear the scars of war. And may we never lose sight of the ultimate goal, a world at peace. May we call Mr. David Greenhalgh and the banner party to assemble, ready to lead our guests from this commemoration. Students and staff, please remain seated during the departure of our special guests.